恭敬大德圣体，为此法会及一切众生，请赞妙法论，教导我们如何了生脱死离苦得乐，殊胜无生。Will the Sangha bring great virtue out of compassion for the sake of this assembly and all living beings? Please turn the wonderful Dhamma will to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sarando suchedoye olahadi samyao sanputoshe. Wushang Shen Shen Wei Miao Fa Bai Qian Wan Jie Nan Zhao Yu Wo Jin Jian Wan De Shou Chi Yuan Jie Ru Lai Zhen Shi Yi. Together, supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in 1,000,000 eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Venerable Master and Dhamma friends, good evening. Welcome to our Sutra lecture. Thank you all for coming tonight. Delighted to have you here. We've got flesh and blood human beings here with us in the Buddha Hall. We've got people joining us on YouTube Live, Dharma Realm Live, on our streaming. We've also got folks listening to a Chinese translation, thanks to the volunteers in Australia who've got headphones on, hearing my voice in English, and have a microphone and are outputting into Mandarin over yy.com. So we've also got a Vietnamese translation up in the balcony if anybody would like to hear Vietnamese tonight. Say again? My goodness, you guys are working hard down there. Thank you. I'll be there soon. Tremendous. I'm assuming the people in Gold Coast don't need a translation into Australian, right? They can pretty much get my Midwestern Californian accent in English. So what do? We start with the invocation, which is right here on your front cover of your text. And this is a wish to invite the invisible but nonetheless real spiritual entities that make this lecture possible, make the sutra possible. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Flower Garland Assembly. We used to do it with percussion instruments, with our bell and fish, but now we're learning to do it in a Western mode. So the melody goes like this. Just like that. Ready? And we do it in Chinese, which is right there. If you can read the characters, you're in good shape. If you're still learning your characters, you can read the Romanized ABCs underneath. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. And the meaning of that is up in the English above, if you want to know what that is. Here we go. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Namo Da Fang Fu Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. One more time. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Huayan Jing Huayan Hai Hui Fo Pu Sa. This particular instrument has been making musical sounds like that since 1900. Do the math. Isn't it amazing? British banjo. Maud Evans is her name. All right, tonight we do something special. We begin the 9th stage. So if you would turn in your text to page 52 and 53. Folks in the Gold Coast, maybe Sam or Cliff has printed out that text for you, or maybe put it on the screen, even better. So everybody can see both the Chinese and the English, or just the English, equally okay. Tonight is special because we're starting the new section. We're in this is, by the way, context. This is called the Flower Garland Sutra. It's a big like this in volumes. Sutra, spoken by the Buddha, said to be the one he spoke first after his awakening. That's the way they teach it in the tradition. And in that sutra, there's a chapter called the 10 Stages, Dashabhumi. That's this one. We've gone from number 1 all the way up to number 9. We finished 8 stages. So we're starting the 9th stage, almost done. The 10th stage is really the pièce de résistance. It's the crown of all 10. So when we get to the 10th stage, we'll be there for some time because it's full of superlatives. For example, the Bodhisattva, the awakened being who we just finished talking about in our annual calendar, whose name is Earth Store, Earth Treasury, Dizan Pusa, he's said to be a 10th stage Bodhisattva. So when we get there, you'll see. It's one of those experiences of stratosphere. It's just, you're on the top of the mountain at the 10th stage. So we're here at the 9th stage now, so we get to find out what that's all about starting tonight. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put my palms together and read a line of the Chinese verses, which are on page 52. and invite you to follow along, just like we did with our invocation. If you're willing to do that, you can read along with the Chinese. It's fun to hear the Chinese sounds coming out of your mouth. If you've never spoken Chinese before, it's really fun. And you can, because these sounds have been in people's consciousness for minimum 5,000 years, if not longer. And something that's been around in our human gene pool that long has kind of got grooves. It's grooved itself down deep. So see if it, I did. When I first saw these characters and heard the sounds, something woke up inside. No other way to explain it other than to say, maybe I've been part of that affinity group that heard these sounds, who knows how long ago, because they seemed to be familiar. They seemed to come from inside me, which was no way to explain it other than that. So, okay, here we go. Are we ready? Page 52. We'll start out with D-J-O-D right there. Here we go. D-J-O-D. 说此菩萨八地时，如来先大神通力，震动十方，诸国度，无量艺术，难思议。Okay, great. Over to the right. Ready? Let's read this together in unison. Watch the punctuation to know when to breathe. Here we go. Just then, after the eighth stage had been explained, the Tathagatas showed their amazing spiritual abilities, quaking lands throughout the 10 directions, countless kotis in number and difficult to imagine. Okay. Look to the left again. Let's see where we came from to get where we got in the English. So, D-J-O-D, two D sounds, D, D, 9 in between. But that's just a cognate. There's no relationship between the first D and the second D. Number 9 stage, number 9 ground. Here we go. 说此菩萨八地时, speaking this Bodhisattva's 8th stage time. Got it? So when the eighth stage of the Bodhisattva had been explained, when that teaching was done, Rulai Xian Da Shan Tong Li, Tathagata, the Rulai is another title of the Buddha, right? The Tathagata made appear. We got one in front, if anybody's bold enough to grab that front one there. There we go. Tathagata explained, right? Tathagata is the Buddha's title, the one who came thus. Made appear, xian, the verb is to make appear. When the Tathagata made appear, big psychic power strength. So, my goodness, what was that? When the Buddhas showed their psychic powers. Okay? 震动, shook like earthquake type. And in 1989, the A's were playing the Giants, and Loma Prieta took that minute to shake. That's our big earthquake. So I don't know. We have the Buddhas making the earthquake. We don't want to trigger the Hayward fault, do we? So, however, this kind of earthquaking is said to be harmless. Probably the Hayward quake fault is going to be harmful, but we'll just hold good thoughts. Here we go. 震动, shook up, earthquaked, all directions, all lands, 10 directions, every land. So, the Buddhas made their psychic powers visible and made the earthquake. What do you do with that? 无量艺术难思议. Limitless numbers, limitless tens of millions of numbers, hard to imagine. 难思议, hard to put into words, hard to even put into thoughts. Okay, that's how the Chinese goes if you go word by word. Put it into English and try to stitch it together into something coherent. And what's going on? This is reflecting back on what just happened. The 8th stage ended. So we finished with the 8th stage. And there's a celebration. The Tathagatas, the Buddhas, are saying, that was really good. That this teaching can come out and be celebrated is a good thing. So let's shake stuff up. Let's party. This is as much as a party as you get in the Buddha Sutras, but it's a celebration for sure. I mean, take a look. Wait a minute. If this were a Netflix film, not to demean it, but there's a lot of cinema happening over on Netflix, original films. Suppose a cinema crew showed up at the Bodhimanda where the Buddha was lecturing. Here is what they would see. They would see earthquakes. And it's the Buddha saying, good stuff, good indeed. We're pleased that the speaker spoke these teachings and the audience heard these teachings and the Dharma survives, the Dharma flourishes. This is rare stuff. This is human heritage, wisdom, magic, pretty rare and special. So the Buddhas are saying, right, we approve, we applaud, we celebrate, we quake with our amazing spiritual abilities. So that's what's going on. Now, we're going to come back and unpack this a bit because as I was thinking about this tonight, we've been at great pains to explain the Avatamsaka Sutra as something like a science textbook, something like a how-to manual for being a bodhisattva. Totally pragmatic, totally upfront, just like a PDF file that comes with your new fancy audio recorder. You've got it in English, and then it's in French, then it's in Spanish, then it's in German. And it's there to tell you how to use your new device. Well, we've been explaining the Avatamsaka Sutra as a how-to text, as a PDF doc to teach us how to practice, how to live like a bodhisattva, how to behave like a bodhisattva. So if that's the case, then why is this suddenly, 我们前边有位置，请坐，有2个位置. Why is this suddenly something different, something mystical? Well, we're going to go into that. We're going to crack that open. Okay, next one. Stanza number 2. We ready? Any comments, questions so far? This is like, it gets even better when folks talk. So I'm, hoping that people will go, excuse me, run that by us again, that didn't connect, or what about this part, or I totally agree, or, any comments, questions, improvements from online or in person are totally welcome. 一切之见无上尊，起身普放大光明，照耀彼诸无量土，悉使众生获安乐。The unsurpassed honored ones, omniscient and all-seeing, their bodies sending forth magnificent radiance everywhere, illumined those countries, limitless in number, so that all those beings might gain peace and happiness. Okay, this part of the text is a narrative. This is kind of the voiceover. This would be, who would it be? It'd be maybe, suppose it would be, who's the British naturalist who always does nature? Sir David Attenborough's voice would be, as amazing as it seems, the Buddha was releasing light. Right? Probably. You think? That's what's going on. This is the in-between Dharma teachings. This is the kind of, for the lecturer, it's fun because all I have to do is tell the story. I have to just let it go, right? Let it go along here. And the unsurpassed honored ones, another title for the Buddha, 一切知见无上尊, people who are omniscient and all-seeing, more praise of the Buddhas, comma, their bodies sending forth magnificent radiance everywhere. Light is coming out of the Buddha's bodies. Okay, now that's another one of those. How's that again? That's pretty extraordinary. And yet, Master Hua, this distinguished monk, our teacher and founder here, would tease me. I remember in Malaysia, we were in a place, Kota Kinabalu, out on the east coast. And he'd given a Dharma talk in a basketball court. And pretty much everybody had turned up who was Buddhist or Chinese, just to see what this teacher was all about. And so after the lecture, people would line up to bow to him. That was something they wanted to do. And nobody, it was late, it was already like 10 o'clock at night, and he was tired, and yet he would take a chair, set it down somewhere on the free throw line, and people would line up across the basketball court all the way down to the other basket and under and out the door, waiting in line to come and bow 3 times to Master Hua. Not to make an offering. These are working folks, and some did make offerings, but that wasn't the point. They just wanted to come and get close and look at him and bow. And the monks would line up behind Master Hua, just kind of needlessly, but it gave us something to do, to stand there. And so we got to see these expressions and everybody's attitude towards this teacher who was famous in China but who had come from America. And they would bow, and they would bow, and bow, and bow. And we would say, can we do 2 by 2? Because we'll be here forever. If you could line up 2 lines, it's okay. And Shifu would be there and just, just very patient and kind, and just a very good feeling. Nobody said anything. He's just bowing. And then he would look up at me and go, Guozhen, what color are they? I said, Shifu, some are tan, probably the farmers are the tan ones, And he'd say, no, that's not what I mean. What colors? What colors do you see? And I said, Shifu, colors? And he would say, oh, come on. He said, most of them are, he said, everybody sends out color. Most of them are kind of a pale yellow. I'm talking about the light, their aura, he would say. Shifu? He said, mostly yellow. He said, did you see that red one come through? And then there was a blue one after that. There was a purple one at the end of the line. Most of them are kind of murky, And I'm like, Shifu? He'd say, you're just totally wet behind the ears. He would say, you're hides all. And then that would be it. And he'd leave me just, what was I being tested? What was that all about? And clearly Master Hua was reading these people's auras and just kind of, punching my button because I couldn't see anything. And then the next day, because he'd opened it up, and he would say to all the monks, we would be in the dormitory, and he would have the headroom, we'd have the rooms around, and he would come in, and we'd be drinking tea in the morning and pour some tea for Shifu. He would say, "It's if you're alive," he'd say, "you're putting out light." He would say, "You've seen those photographs of leaves." Kirlian photography, right? Everybody knows. Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain. Remember that book back in the 60s? It was ESP, was the famous extrasensory perception. Duke University, for some reason, was big in, they had one researcher with a ESP lab. And so this, the book that was hot at the time was Psychic Discoveries Behind the Iron Curtain, and Kirlian was the first researcher who had charged an electrical plate and put living things, living beings, like a leaf of or a rose in front of the plate, and then exposed a photographic negative to it. And they would get this outline of the leaf, and then cut it, and then wait an hour, and the light would go out. It'd just be vegetable matter at that point, no longer living. And people took that into all kinds of places, such as, when you pick broccoli, you're killing the broccoli. Therefore, you're not really compassionate. They took that as the plant pathology argument against vegetarianism. But in any case, Master Hua would say, yeah, it's like that. Every body sends out light. Cultivators send out refined, brilliant light. Most people send out kind of a murky nothing until they get angry, and then it turns red. And if they're really angry, then it turns black. And he would say traditional Chinese physicians back in the Huangdi, Neijing, Suwen era, in the Yellow Emperor's classic of internal medicine, one of the best methods of diagnosis was using your eyes to see where the patient's energy was blocked. You knew that, didn't you? He would say. We go, no, Shifu. Mostly we kind of like, we stick out our tongue. That's about as refined as it gets. And acupuncturists can do this, and that was considered third level Chinese medicine. Good Chinese physicians could hear in your voice where your organs were deficient. Others would know by smell. They could diagnose by smell. But the Shen Yi, the real skillful doctors, could look at your aura and see where you were blocked or in trouble or, likely to get a disease. And so he would say, sure, that's the same thing. He said, what do you think that is around the Buddha, that round thing? He said, that's the Buddha's aura. And it's technicolored. It's multicolored. The Buddha's aura is multicolored. Now, this would just kind of come out of the blue, and Shifu would tease us. I need to tell you about one of the aspects of Buddhism in Asia that maybe you don't know unless you travel to Buddhist Asia, particularly Malaysia and Singapore, not so much in Hong Kong, but very much in Thailand, which is neon auras. Right? Neon. Neon signs. We don't see it as much anymore. Vietnam a lot, right, Kai? Yeah, it's popular in Vietnam. So what is neon? For me, growing up, neon was always bar and grill. Like Judy's hot spot or Nick's place or something like that. And it was neon, and it would flash, and it meant cheap thrills, basically. That's where you get your, or Open, or Budweiser. It would be that's neon. And it was used to sell stuff to get your attention, and it was definitely less than spiritual, okay? So somehow, neon and this ability, neon is a gas, and these artists are skillful in Southeast Asia of bending the glass around, filling it full of gas and running an electrical charge through it so it lights up. And Buddhist artists, neon Buddhist artists, got a hold of neon technology. And if you had a monastery and you set up a Buddha image, you definitely wanted to hire one of these excellent neon artists so that the Buddha's aura could light up. And boy, I've seen some incredible, patterns. Now that they're computerized, you can get all, they will boop, 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 And I would look at it and go, bar and grill, It's like, eat at Sam's, It was, to me, I just want to say, could you turn that off so we can bow? It's like, because in my mind, now that's my prejudice because I grew up in the Midwest, but it was a truck stop, not sacred Buddha. But these artists who could really do it. I remember in Thailand there was one monk. He was a monk who was just, he commanded big bucks. If you could get him to do your Buddha aura, oh boy. Some would be spiraling out, and then they would flash, and then they would spiral back. And so that was part of putting a Buddha image up for years, was you had to get neon aura. So here, the unsurpassed honored ones, omniscient and all-seeing, their bodies sending forth magnificent neon radiance everywhere, right? It doesn't say neon, but that was an attempt in, something very tangible to create something that is quite intangible, because Master Hua teasing me about not being able to see the colors of the people bowing to him in Kota Kinabalu, they were visible to him, and he was saying, well, everybody's got light. How come you can't see it? Your eyes are that dull, Yeah, Shifu, I'm sorry. So, and he was, teasing. But here's the sutra saying it's real, that Buddhas emit incredible radiance. Our two seated Buddhas on the altar behind me have a flaming aura. Right over Roberto, right over your head is a painting by a Buddhist nun. We have right over here, so you folks can't see it, but it's right over Roberto. There it is. It's and people online can't see it either. That's the Buddha's aura painted by a Buddhist nun who is highly regarded in Taiwan as a great painter of Buddha images. And that light is, by all accounts, absolutely real. Here we have Guanyin, we have Amitabha and great strength, and they have this round aura around their heads. Okay, go look at an icon painted by a good Catholic, Orthodox icon painter. That aura is around the Blessed Virgin, is around baby Jesus. What's going on? It must really exist. Sir?
If you want to buy a electronic aura,
Yes?
you can go to Luke Icon in San Jose.
Is that right? Man, oh man, where have I been? Yeah. Wow. Cool. We could put we have a spot. There's a Buddha without an aura. Neither one of us is serious. He's pulling my leg, and I'm not, actually, because I know, having put it on YouTube now, somebody's going to go, Dharma Master, it's arriving tomorrow by UPS. Say again? You can, but you won't. That's great. In San Jose, well, there's enough Buddhists who saw it at home and who miss it. It's whatever you're exposed to. I'm making fun of it, and I shouldn't, because it's just not my tradition. When I saw neon growing up, my association with it was not that. But if you grew up, there are people whose first connection was Buddhism in Malaysia, in Vietnam, and in Southeast Asia, and who would see that and get homesick, because that's how Buddhas appear, So in any case, it's an attempt to create in something real something, material, something that is genuine but non-material, immaterial. Master Hua was tweaking me because I couldn't see it with my normal vision. His spiritual vision allowed him to see the reality of auras. They're really real. Icon painters tried to put it around the baby Jesus. So what is it about spirituality that at a certain point of purity, is it precept purity? Is it because you don't kill, steal, lust, lie, or use drugs, therefore your light is preserved? Is it a state of samadhi? You can concentrate, and that energy that is kind of murky yellow ordinarily gets recycled and becomes deeply concentrated, kind of like incandescent going to laser, right? Laser beams they can shine it off the moon because it's through a ruby crystal, which is very hard and takes the beam and, focus. Who knows what it's about? But Christian icon painters totally gave it to the Blessed Virgin, to the saints. Is it Saint Sebastian whose dies full of arrows? There's that picture in the Louvre of Saint Sebastian being martyred, the martyrdom of Saint Sebastian, right? And he's a pincushion full of arrows. I forget the story. Maybe somebody knows. But he's a saint because he's got a halo, right? So, check out Guanyin Bodhisattva's halo. What's the difference? That's interesting. That'd be something to check out. I imagine there's probably some PhD writing about saints and halos. Jerry? Does reciting the Buddha's name strengthen and spread our aura? Why don't you try it and let us know? We've got plenty of cameras. We could photograph before and after. So that's a snarky answer, but probably the answer would be yes. Anything that concentrates. So where would the light come from? That's all of the light passages. Where would that physical light come from? So I'm out of my league right now. This is not something I can clearly. I didn't pass my reality test. I don't see auras, but the principle goes like this, which is our Buddha nature, and you could just say your human nature as well, has been described as light. The reason why I don't see your Buddha nature and mine doesn't shine brightly, I don't have a halo, is because I have done things with my body, mouth, and mind that cover over that nature. It's described as coverings. Just like think of paint over a mirror. Mirrors are bright. You look at the mirror, you can check your hair. Good hair day, bad hair day. If you paint a mirror, it's not the case that the mirror doesn't reflect, it's just covered. Scrape off the paint with a razor blade, and lo and behold, you can check if you've got your contacts in there correctly. So that nature is said to be a light, right? Lighted. Ordinarily, we lose that light out our eyes, our ears, our nose, our tongue, our body, and most of all, out our mind. It just goes out, gone. Somebody who cultivates, and the questioner said, reciting the Buddha's name, somebody who, particularly the mind, takes the mind, and instead of thinking to check your email or your Instagram, instead just takes that impulse and goes, Namo Amitofo, or Namo Guan Shiyin Bodhisattva, or Namo Earthstore Bodhisattva, or Om Mani Padme Hum, or whatever you're reciting, and recycles that energy, you've got that much erg of light that you reclaimed. If you can take your eyes and instead of scanning, then just let them return. You can take your ears instead of choosing what you like and rejecting what you dislike. Recycle that energy. Pretty soon, you've got all your energy. So yes, it concentrates and it expands. So whatever method you use, it has that function. So a Buddha, the sixth of these shantong that are mentioned in line number 2 is called Lo Jin Tong, outflows ended. The power, the psychic ability to put an end to all that outflowing energy. So a Buddha reconnects her circuits and becomes pure yang, outflows no more, and lights up. Bing! Right? So let's, I got another image which I think makes sense. Remember light bulbs? You ever used to have fluorescent light bulbs? And fluorescent light bulbs, if you looked at them, they were frosted, but you could see from underneath. they had a filament inside. The earliest ones are made of bamboo, apparently. Bamboo could hold a charge. I didn't know that. But whatever conductive, reflective material filaments are made of, they would come out of the base, they would go up, and they would go back down and connect. Screw the bulb into a base, plug it into the wall, turn the switch, and the energy goes around the filament, bang, you got light. It's very inefficient. Apparently it's like 15% of the energy sent in gets translated into light. 85% is in heat or vibration. That's why a laser, not doing away with the filament, is much more efficient. So, now if you take that filament that is necessary to turn electricity into light, if you break it, it's dark, no light. It doesn't come on, right? Same base, same current, same switch, no light. You broke the filament. So, we got that image in our minds. Think about you when you meditate. So, you're happily sitting and comfortable, you relax your muscles, not holding them tight, and you take your ears, your eyes, your nose, your tongue, your body, and your mind, and bring them back, and you light up. You can. It's called getting enlightened, right? However, as soon as the eyes move out, the ears move out, you break the filament. And what was potentially a light goes dark again. And you can't see the way you could before until you, with the next thought, reconnect it. Oh, back. The energy, the electricity is the same. It's there. It's how we use it. Why don't we know this? People don't meditate. We don't do this exercise very much. Now we do. Mindfulness has become a thing. So more and more people are going to be having that experience of feeling connected inside. But it requires us to stop the outflow, stop the outflowing energy, mostly through our eyes and ears, but primarily through the mind as well. So that's an analogy. That's just a picture to kind of approach what this might be like. So Buddhas are able to send out light from their bodies. They can. That light is so strong they can use it. Woe betide the person who gets that connection inside and then lets their temper go. Oh boy, if that energy is built up and where it's got some real strength, and then you decide in a fit of pique to blast somebody, it can be really shocking and damaging. So Master Hua said to his monks, he said, you guys cannot get angry. If you get angry now, it's like an atomic bomb going off. Way different than just an ordinary person who's kind of irritated or annoyed and shoots off their temper. So, Ning jiang qian ning dong qian zhang shui bu dong dao ren xin. You'd be better off changing the course of 1,000 rivers than to move the mind of a cultivator, it says, for that reason. Because that energy, that light, is really, really strong once you embark on that path of turning your senses back. It's real stuff. It's really, really real. This is not just an idea, right? So, Ning jiang, Ning yi qian jiang shui bu dong dao ren xin. You're better off changing the course of 1,000 rivers. Can you do that? Of course not. You're better off doing that than you are making a single, moving the mind of a cultivator. Connie? Can't hear. It depends on how the layperson uses his or her senses. Potentially, of course, no difference. So it's just the force of somebody's anger once they've been cultivating is really fierce. That's the point. Atomic bomb? No, it's really damaging. You can, because that person is using their nature in a refined way. So think of a laser beam, same thing, right? If you take your bed lamp and hold it up to a steel plate. The steel plate might get warm or hot. If you take a laser beam and focus it on a steel plate, you can cut right through it. So you get the analogy, right? A cultivator's anger is damaging. That's the point. Imagine. Use your imagination. So don't piss off the monks. Warning. Number 3. 菩萨无量百千亿，具是永在虚空住，已过诸天上妙功，供养说众最胜者。Limitless hundreds of thousands of kotis of bodhisattvas simultaneously elevated into the air and hovered there, and they offered gifts of utmost wonder, surpassing all in the heavens, to the ones supreme among all speakers. Okay, our video of the events that go on in between teachings of the stages includes episodes of levitation. My goodness, right? Bodhisattvas climbing into the air. To do what? What are they doing? They're making offerings. This is one of these activities that bodhisattvas do that I was totally unprepared for. This didn't occur to me that here's somebody who's next to be a Buddha, right? A bodhisattva is a Buddha in preparation. They're way up there. You know, these are spiritual warriors, they're heroes, they're selfless people who study. Everything we've been reading about is how they prepare to teach. This is what bodhisattvas do. They're on their way to save people save us from suffering. But what do in their spare time is they take wonderful things and give them to the Buddhas. That's what it says. That's so interesting. You know, of all the behaviors, you wouldn't think that making offerings equal to the devas kinds of offerings would be something they would do. So, how many? 菩萨无量百千亿. Bodhisattvas, no measure, 100,000, 10 million. 具是 at all times, 永在虚空住, leap into space and stay there. 永在虚空住. They jump into space and pause. That's what they're doing. So there's remarkable, mind over matter here. Bodhisattvas over space. They're able to pause in the air. And, here's the verb, 以过诸天上妙供养, 说中最胜者. Using, passing all devas, supreme, wondrous offerings. Okay? Last line. To 供养, to make offerings to, check this out, speaking amid most supreme one. The best speaker. The best speaker among all the elocutors, is that a word? Among all the Dharma speakers, the Dharma host. They're the best speaker, to the one who talks good, the best talker, right? So our video, our story, if this were a Netflix documentary, would have bodhisattvas elevating into the air, taking incredibly wonderful stuff. What would it be? Chapter 40, at the end, gives us a clue. The things that bodhisattvas give to Buddhas include incense, flowers, food, robes, lamps. They give dwellings like monasteries or stupas or pagodas. They give music. They give trees, sometimes, groves, places where Buddhas can find shelter and stroll and speak and talk. Those are the things they give. It doesn't mention BMWs anywhere in the mix, right? Jaguar sports cars, none of those. Doesn't mention laptops, cameras, no. There are very few cameras, unfortunately. I wish. The Bodhisattva gave Leicas and Hasselblads to all the Buddhas. No. But the things that they make offerings of are all natural, interestingly. They all come from nature. So, water. They give wonderful water. Things that get worked, like incense. Incense is not natural, it doesn't grow on a tree, it's from a tree and then you work it into incense. And it specifies, they give powdered incense, paste incense, stick incense, and wonderful in variety and effect. So that's interesting. So these offerings are something that anybody could offer because flowers are available. However, devas give a special kind of flower that is available to them, things called mandarva flowers, things called, with various kinds of lotuses, red lotuses, yellow lotuses, white lotuses, blue lotuses. And they often give jewels, which are not available on the earth, things like mani, M-A-N-I, mani jewels. Mani is one of those substances that you have to kind of do some creative translation. Usually we just say mani, because there's no counterpart on earth, but the sutras talk about it as if it's absolutely, totally real. The same way they talk about dragons, right? Dragons is one of those quasi-zoological, spiritual animals that Europe talks about, St. George. If you go to Krakow, Poland, and you go to the church on the top of the hill, which used to be the palace, they have bones that they say are from a dragon, no doubt. There it is, this giant jawbone, and it could only be from some huge animal. And the folklore says, yeah, it's from a dragon. And there's actually underneath the palace, there's a cave where the dragon lives. And you go down and walk there, and you could totally believe that there's a dragon who, as soon as the lights go out at 6 o'clock, the dragon flies back and, turns on the tube and catches up with his binge watching. So dragons are in that realm of, St. George and the dragon, we talk about them. The Chinese, who've been around culturally intact for 5,000 years, say dragons? Sure. Which ones do you want? We've got earth dragons, water dragons, sky dragons, heaven dragons. And mani is one of those things. It's in that realm of kind of know what it is, kind of don't, but the sutras talk about it as if it's real. Devas give it, bodhisattvas give it. Otherwise, the offerings that bodhisattvas make are pretty much totally in the realm of something that you could conceivably give. I like that. They're democratic. It's not that only rich people can make the kind of offerings that Buddhas want. Not at all. And the story of the widow's mite, totally here. Totally there. The poor woman who had enough resources to buy a single cup of oil to offer to the Buddha, and the Buddha came down off his seat to accept it and bless her and say, this is a supreme offering, compared to the rich man or rich woman who, gives cartloads of oil, but it's just the interest on their account. Doesn't even impact anything of their wealth. So that story is, in the Bible, but it's also it's a heritage story. So these offerings are what bodhisattvas now are giving to the Buddhas. Okay, so far so good? Any comments online? No? Okay, about offerings? So, onward. Ready? 大自在王，自在天，细功通心，喜无量，各异种种众共聚，供养深深功德海。The heart of the Deva king from the Maheshvara heaven, and the hearts of every god, filled with joy that knew no bounds. They each made offerings to the profound sea of merit and virtue, of substantial numbers of items. Grammatically, this one was a bear to translate. This is tough. There's multiple clauses here. Da zi zai Wang zi zai Tian, the great Ishvara Deva, the great Ishvara King, Ishvara Deva. So Ishvara is the name of a god. When you take him up a level, he becomes Maha Ishvara. Sanskrit puts those together, so you get Maheshvara. Maha Ishvara is Maheshvara. Da, there's Zizai Tian, there's Da Zizai Tian. So Ishvara and Maheshvara. These are devas that live right between the desire realm and the form realm. And you can see them in the iconography of Indian paintings. Maheshvara rides on an ox, a white ox. And he's got 3 eyes. And the ox looks very sleek and travels around. Master Hua, Shifu would talk about him as if he knew him and dealt with him regularly. And Shifu said he's really, really arrogant, super proud. This particular deva thinks he's the cat's meow, and he's not even in the Brahma realm. His samadhi is not that of a Brahma god, but he is Zizai, and that's one of those words again that's really tough to translate. We've talked about that before. Zizai is kind of like effortless self-mastery. You can do pretty much anything you want with your body. No sweat. You want to fly, you can fly. You want to eat, you can eat. You want to not eat, you can not eat. You want to enjoy life, you can enjoy life. You want to enter samadhi and cultivate, you can do that. So, that's Maheshvara. The heart of the Deva King from that heaven, and the hearts of every god included there, got really, really happy, filled with joy. Why did they fill with joy? They heard the 8th ground. They heard the 8th stage. They heard the teaching and got it. They completely grokked those lessons. They understood, and they were inspired to make offerings, like the bodhisattvas. And devas, that's one of the things that devas do. Gods give gifts because they've got them. They got blessings. So here's one of the realities of the Buddha's description of how the world works is, if you're a god, life is good. Physically comfortable in a way that we can't imagine. Okay? So what would be considered luxurious for us? If anybody has ever been involved in Europe's jet set, in royalty, European royalty type, and the hangers-on around the edges of European royalty, there's a class of folks who have enough wealth that mostly they travel 24/7 in a world of entertainment, of luxury, Monte Carlo, yachting world, jet setting, meaning there's a party in Switzerland, we're going off to Geneva or Saint-Tropez tomorrow, we're jetting down to the Riviera, but then it's Jockey Club in Hong Kong is opening, and so we're going to go place our bets with the Royal Jockey Club, and because the racetrack is opening up at Palmadi in Hong Kong. So we're going to Hong Kong, followed by a new casino in Macau, and after that, private party because British royalty is marrying another princess. And so people who live in that world, and if you've ever seen how that works. There are people whose feet never touch ground. They go from chauffeured limousine to private jet to private yacht to, elevators up to the penthouse. And when I was the college student in residence at the Aspen Institute for Humanistic Studies, my first summer as a grad student at Cal, and I got a fellowship, the Danforth Graduate Fellowship. So the Aspen Institute went to Danforth to ask for a student liaison who could provide the input of young people. So I went to Aspen, the Aspen Institute, for the summer of 1972, sorry. And just as an example, the Aspen Institute did seminars of a week throughout the summer, and the guest list was stratospheric. Katharine Graham, editor of the Washington Post; Seymour Topping, managing editor of the New York Times; Salvador Luria, Nobel laureate; president of the Chase Manhattan Bank; George McGovern, unsuccessful candidate for the Democratic presidents, Eugene McCarthy, ditto, right? 4-star generals, retired. And I was there as the college student in residence, right? So it's like, I was there to provide the nitty-gritty from the streets coming from Berkeley. And so we had all our meals in the Garden of the Four Seasons. The Garden of the Four Seasons was this 4-star restaurant there at the Aspen Institute. And I, as a grad student at Cal, my diet included brown rice and steamed vegetables 7 times a week. That was like brown rice with tamari, soy sauce, and goma shiu. I crushed my own sesame seeds and salt. So that was what I ate, like all the time, because that's what I could afford. That's what I could cook. So we show up at the Garden of the Four Seasons, and there are 6 entrees for lunch: poached salmon and fresh trout, which had been in the stream that morning in the Colorado Rockies. And then at dinner, you can imagine, and this is before I was a committed vegetarian, and the dessert cart comes around, and everything was seasoned to the max. By the 3rd day, I couldn't taste anything. My taste buds went on strike. It was astonishing how my mouth went numb because of all being exposed to all these flavors at once. I couldn't taste a thing. So I wound up at the end of the summer back in my own kitchen in my apartment cooking brown rice and steamed vegetables just so I could taste the food. But it was that level of just astonishing waste. And money was not the issue. It was the experience that people were after and could afford. And the contrast between my life, I drove a Volkswagen bus, a 1965 Volkswagen bus that broke down all the time. And so I spent a lot of time by the side of the road, with a spanner in my hand, just tinkering with a carburetor, and watching these chauffeured limousines head out to the Aspen airport to meet the Gulfstream jets bringing in the guests. And realized that there was a level that I was not going to cross, and it had to do. It was clear to me, seeing that it had nothing to do with merit. It had to do with something invisible, which I didn't have a word for at the time, but it's called blessings. And so I referred to, I was a Zen meditator, but I hadn't met Master Hua yet. I took refuge the next year. After having this experience at the Aspen Institute, I realized I needed a teacher. Because I wasn't enough in myself to get where I needed to go to be able to answer the questions that were rising. So seeing this contrast in lifestyle and the amount of resources that went into supporting the lives of, bless her heart, Catherine Graham. She used to editor, the storied editor of the Washington Post. There she was. And just she was a hardworking newspaper editor, but just to say the ergs of energy that were required to keep her moving to meet the needs of her life compared to mine. I was on the ground, and these folks were in the penthouse, or in the air, or on the yacht. And so what was the difference? Well, I was, a college kid, for one. But just to witness that and to be intellectually tossed into that circle and expected to swim and to contribute, that was a shocker. And later, when I met the sutra, particularly the chapter called the Heng Sure, the Worthy Leader chapter, here was a description of how somebody becomes a god, a deva, in heaven. What's it like being in the heavens? I asked the sutra. And the description that the sutra gave me, I think, mirrored the gap between the guests at the Aspen Institute for Humanistic Studies and me, a Berkeley first-year college, MA grad student. That gap is mirrored, flip it up, between a deva in heaven and those folks who were enjoying a kind of a maximum of luxury among humans, right? Who had accessible to them those resources. The devas, for example, and the Heng Sure chapter, Worthy Leader chapter, takes you through different realms. But let's look at the second level of the desire heavens. It's called the heaven of the 33 gods. Sanshir Santian. The Sanskrit name is Triyastrimsha heaven. That's where Shakra, chief among gods, lives and teaches. The sutra talks a lot about Shakra because he interacts with the bodhisattvas, and Shakra occasionally interacts with humans, it says. Okay, so in the heaven of the 33, what it's like there is whatever food you want to eat, you think of it and it appears. Poof. Just the way you like it. Right? No chef needed. Your blessings call into being the food you want to eat, just the way you like it, as much as you want, whenever you want it. Clothing. If you're a deva in that second level of the desire realm, you think of clothes and they appear to you the way you want them. What is it? The blessings of the gods. Fu Bao. Okay, who gets to be a deva in the heaven of the 33? You do. I do. She does. He does. If you cultivate blessing. Master Hua would say this over and over. He would say, anybody can get to be a god. Many of you have been gods. Don't do it. Not recommended. You can get there and don't. Why? Waste of time. It's just like going to Monte Carlo and taking out a passport and never leaving. You're in the casino 24/7. You never step out. You're lost in the funhouse as a deva. Comfortable, incredibly blissful, incredibly sybaritic and comfortable and joyful, dead end. You'll come back and start over. With that in mind, Master Hua's take on it, the Heng Sure chapter says, among the blessings that devas enjoy in the heaven of the 33 is this thing called the Tiangu, the celestial drum, the drum of the heavens. And it booms out for two reasons. One is that the Tiangu goes boom, 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 boom when Chakra looks over his heaven and says, these folks have lost it. They got to hear the Dharma. the drum, boom, 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 come to the Dharma hall because I'm going to tell you about birth and death. And everybody comes when they hear the drum to hear Chakra speak Dharma. Now he's a Deva, but he's a Bodhisattva in disguise. Disguised as a god, they say. The other time the drum beats is when the Asuras are coming to war. The second kind of Tiangu goes boom, boom, boom. Get your boxing gloves on. Get your Harry Potter wands out. Get your Uzis and your nunchakus, because here come the Asuras. Time to go to war. And it describes, believe it or not, this is incredible. This is the stories I was telling in Singapore. It describes how the Devas fight the Asuras. How they use their shantong as weapons. Incredible. That's a story for another time. But there you go. And so here you are. The sutra takes you into the Deva's realm, and it says the chief among the gods is busy waking up his Devas, saying, don't be intoxicated by the pleasure. It's not ultimate. Recognize it, nothing wrong with the pleasure, it's not bad, it's not evil, it's just, it'll stop you because it's too comfortable. And you forget to cultivate, and, you know, blessings, they say, are like a bank account. You use it up, it's gone. You don't have no more money to spend. You're a poor man, woman. In the heavens, you fall back. And Master Hua would say, what do you think about these rich people? And he would, I don't think Bill Gates was a wealthy man when he was Microsoft, when Master Hua was teaching. He would say, where do these Devas, he talked about Onassis a lot, because Onassis was, John Kennedy died, and Jacqueline married Onassis. He would say, where do these people get their wealth? They are Devas in the past who fell out of the heavens but carried a lot of their blessings with them. Among humans, they're intensely wealthy. In the Deva realm, they can't even stay there. They're too poor. So it's like, whoa. You know, and the questions go, and Connie's going to say, does that mean rich people are all post-Devas? Right? So, all right. Mostly, I don't know. Ask Shifu. You know, that's I'm quoting him. So, but yeah, that question occurs to me. It's like, whoa. And then he would go on to say, and if the rich people among humans don't cultivate, they continue to fall. And you can fall out of the human realm. So, who's the Buddha? The Buddha is somebody who has both blessings and wisdom. Enough wisdom to say, yeah, blessings are great. I'd like to give them away. I'd like to share them. Thereby, what? Planting more blessings for my future, but also spreading them out. Not trying to consume them all in my six senses. How much pleasure can you cram into one set of six senses, right? So, don't waste them. Give them away. And by giving them away, you ensure they're coming back to you. So this open hand harvest, it comes in and it goes out. You use your blessings, becoming a benefactor, the way guess who has done? Bill Gates and Melinda done a lot of positive giving, which would say, if this principle is true, if it makes sense, that he's going to sustain as a wealthy man or even back up for another round in the heavens. So, how do you get to the heavens? In your human body, do a lot of giving. Plant blessings, and that's the verb they say. Plant them like seeds in the ground by giving to people, making others happy, thereby assuring that you become blessed in the future. Yes, sir.
Without cultivating, isn't there still in the human realm a connection between
Here's a mic.
a lot of wealth and this kind of aggression? And the way they put it,
Isn't there a connection between
having wealth and the warlike attitude of the devas? Isn't that carry over to the human realm if you're not you're not cultivating?
It sure can. It doesn't necessarily. So that's a thoughtful question. The problem is, our human, and the sutras talk about this, our human nature also includes greed, anger, and delusion. And it's very easy when you get wealthy and the power that wealth brings to cling to it. And we do. We do. Just the current, what happened to democracy in America? Democracy may be a failed experiment in America because people charged with the protection of democracy went instead to ensuring their own position instead of, they just shifted focus from the things that brought them there to clinging to what it brought them. And that's all it takes to ruin it. Yeah. So your question was that aggressive attitude in the heavens. These are, I'm scooting across the tops of the waves. These are deeper stories that we need to really understand because, from my mind, this is fascinating stuff. It's as if what happened? It's as if the Buddha lifted the hood on the universe and said, take a look at what's really powering things through the heavens, back to the human realm, down into the hells, and up again, all the way to Buddhahood. Now, what was our takeoff? Our takeoff was watching bodhisattvas behave in between the Dharma teachings of the 8th and 9th ground. Where we got into this was watching the bodhisattvas make offerings, saying they're a lot like the devas. Okay, that's where I went off on this long digression about, So yeah, there is aggression in the heavens, but it doesn't arise with the devas. It arises with another level, another what are called Dharma realms, called the Asuras. And Asuras are these beings who live to fight. They're born in conflict. And they only want to be devas, but they don't have the requisite blessings. If you think about titans and gods in Greek mythology, anybody who read Edith Hamilton or enjoyed Greek mythology, recommended if you haven't. The same situation. There are gods on top of Mount Olympus, but they're always being challenged by the titans who want to replace them. So the warfare is generated there. And the fighting going on in the heavens is almost always defensive. And interestingly enough, blood is not shed. They scare the Asuras into running away. Chakra transforms his body using psychic powers into a Vajra-wielding, scary warrior who he flips his body into 1,000 bodies, and every Asura sees 1,000 chakras coming down on him alone. And it's purely done with chakras, psychic powers, to give this illusion that this one Asura soldier is about to be pulverized by pestle, Vajra, lightning bolt wielding chakra coming. So, anyway, good question. Yeah. So, let's complexify the picture, move it into another level of cinema. This is cinematic heaven activity. Here we go. 富有天女千万亿，身心欢喜喜充遍，各州乐音无量种，供养人中大导师。Furthermore, celestial maidens, millions of kotis in number, their bodies and minds filled with surpassing joy, each played limitlessly many kinds of music as an offering to the great guiding master among humans. So this includes devis, right? The feminine gender, female devas. What are they doing? Same thing. They're really, really happy that the 8th ground was spoken, the 8th stage. They're going to hear the 9th stage, and they see the Buddha, and they respond by making music as an offering. Many kinds. Orchestral music, right? So, let's see. There we go. Over there, that window. a little dark out, you can't see it, but there's a deva playing a harp right there. We've got that depicted on our Berkeley Monastery stained glass window. Is that a devi or a deva? I can't tell, but they're definitely body and mind filled with surpassing joy. They're so happy, they want to sing about it. They want to dance it. They want to play music. So, neat how this part of the sutra is very cool because it's the interval between the teachings of samadhi and emptiness and such. Jerry? So once we reach the ninth stage, how do bodhisattvas use their what? To do what? Okay, so once you get to the ninth stage, how does a bodhisattva use their spiritual skill? And hearing that phrase, I think I know who's asking the question, but I won't. How do they do that to move human beings' collective karma? What was the last part? To elevate their alleviate their pain. To alleviate their pain. Okay, so the question would be, do they do that? And one would hope. So, how do they do it? So, do they do it? How do they do it? They do it by teaching. But they teach like one attitude at a time. To say they affect the collective karma, that's, one might wish. You say as if, right? Ideally, sure. And occasionally you get a chance to do it. It's hard because the focus of a bodhisattva's teaching is people and other living beings. And people, as we just saw, we've got this willingness to be generous and do giving and make offerings of things, of gifts. And then we turn around and we cling to the good stuff that happens as a result. You run for political office and promise a new broom sweeps clean. It's going to be different than those old rotten guys that we're going to sweep them out of office. And then we replace them and we repeat the process. We become the rotten guys we were going to replace. And absolute power corrupts absolutely, etc. So human nature has all that stuff in it. And it's really hard to change collective karma to alleviate pain. That's it's a really good question because that would be the perfect situation. And I think it happens by drips and drabs. It happens bit by bit. So, how does it happen? For example, one teacher coming to America 100 years ago set so much in motion. I would never have heard of the Avatamsaka Sutra if it wasn't for Master Hua 9 years, every night for 90 minutes, saying, we're going to open this book up and look into it now. Help me translate it, because I don't speak English. Who knew about the Avatamsaka Sutra? Okay, so, Jin Hosher? I'm sorry, thank you. Good point. Master Hua did not come 100 years ago. He came in 1962. He was born 100 years ago. So we should actually thank Master Hua's mom, Mrs. Bai. Yeah, for bringing him along. So, but look at that, you could say City of 10,000 Buddhas is a playground where anybody who wants to cultivate in any way they want to cultivate is empowered to go to that place and meditate, recite, do good deeds, be a karma yogi, involve yourself in publication, in education, in gardening, and he gave it away. It's the Mendocino State Hospital. He bought it and said, it's not mine. It's here for anybody who can hold the precepts and cultivate. If you're Jewish, come here and do Yom Kippur. If you're Catholic, come and do the Mass. And Catholic priests did. I saw my first Catholic Mass at City of 10,000 Buddhas. If you're Native American, come and take your sacred willows and weave them into your baskets. That's what they're here for. And so that's a lot of, seed planting. Whether or not the collective has moved, I think so. Because, I'm sitting here and had no clue that I would be here, that I would get the opportunity to say, we're beginning the 9th ground on the 10 ground. Who would have imagined? Impossible, And yet it's happening. And we're hoping that someone here, someone's here will carry it on. Say, the Avatamsaka Sutra is really amazing. We need to keep this keep it in the gene pool, keep it into our collective consciousness. There may not be 3 places tonight in the world where the Avatamsaka Sutra is being taught. Master Heng Sure at the Singapore Buddhist Lodge invited me there for just 3 lectures so that his community would go, oh, actually the Avatamsaka Sutra is not as frightening as we thought it was. Because the first night I lectured, people were like, we did exactly what we did tonight. We read it, it was on the screen, I explained it, opened it up, told stories about it, and they're going, no, we can't understand it. It's like really complicated. It's philosophical, I don't, one word wrong, you'll fall into the hells, like that. And by the second night, it was kind of like, by the third night, it was like, this is actually okay. I get it, So it's hard to find people willing to commit 90 minutes to a sutra text. And this is just the Avatamsaka. But so how much pain is being alleviated, I can't guarantee. But on the third night of the lectures in Singapore, 3 weeks ago, our host, Rosalind, said at the end of the lecture, she said her jaw was tired because she'd been smiling and laughing so much. Yeah. Okay. You may ask a question. We got a microphone for you right there.
In Avatamsaka world, there are multiple Tathagatas and unsurpassed honored ones.
Right, yeah.
Could you explain why this is so?
Why it is so? さあ、難しいですね。So it is so, and don't take it from me. I'll give you my opinion. I can't guarantee it is the case. So one of my favorite stories out of Kuala Lumpur. First time we arrived in Kuala Lumpur in 1978, this layman met Master Hua in his Mercedes, and he was so happy to be able to take Master Hua from the airport to our lodging, and I was in the car, and he was driving, and Sherpa was in the back seat, and he said, "Venerable Sir," he said, "in the Theravada tradition, which we're so familiar with, they say there is one Buddha, only one Buddha. There has never been more than one Buddha. And that Buddha entered nirvana. And yet," he said, he's showing off his knowledge of Buddhism, he says, "in the Mahayana tradition, which you espouse, they say there are limitless and countless Buddhas. Which one is correct?" He said. But that similar to your question, right? So Master Hua was like, oh, okay. So he leans forward on the seat. 怎么说呢? He said, "So, what are you asking me?" And so the layman says, well, lots of Buddhas or one Buddha? Was his question. The Master Hua goes, 那你问我，我就说，连一尊佛都没有啊。He said, if you want to ask me, I would say there's not even a single Buddha. And he goes, hits the brake. He was not ready for that answer, you know. Not even one Buddha? Master Hua smiles, leans, and he says, there's only great wisdom. Oh, good answer, you know. He was so happy with that answer. So I would offer that story to your question. Is it the case that there are, supreme Wu Shangzun, supreme honored ones? The Avatamsaka is definitely a Mahayana text. In the Mahayana strain of Buddhism, some people say it came after the Theravada. Pretty much people are not saying that now. Historians say the Theravada and the Mahayana arose simultaneously in different parts even of the same monastery. So the Mahayana monks would be over in the hall of Medicine Buddha, listening to the Lotus Sutra or listening to the Vajra Sutra. The Theravada monks would be over in the Chan hall, listening to the Agamas and chanting. And monks would go back and forth. This is another historical way of talking about why there's all of the available sutras in the Taisho. So, in the Taisho, and the first several volumes are the Agamas. Basically, the sutras spoken during the first 15 or 20 years of the Buddha's lifespan, of his teaching as Buddha. Then there's the Mahayana texts. Oh my goodness. Then there's the Shastras and the Vinaya. And so different people want different principles. How could there be multiple Buddhas? The Avatamsaka says if you crack open a mote of dust, a tiny dust particle, there are as many Buddhas inside that mote of dust as there are sand grains in the Mojave Desert, right? Sand grains in Death Valley. Infinite numbers of Buddhas in a single tiny particle, which of course, logically, that does damage to my brain, right? It's like, whoa, I can't possibly make sense of that until you understand that it's not meant to please our binary conscious mind. That the state of the Buddha arises from Samadhi. And once you attain that Samadhi, duality is no longer the only game, where it's got to be one or many, or none, Once we enter Samadhi, then you realize, for example, how many living beings are in your body right this instant? Trillions. Trillions and trillions and trillions of sentient creatures take me as their home, right? I'm actually in them. What I consider me is this lightest part of this living, teeming thing, and that really does damage to my view of me as some integral being, So our friend Fabrizio, Fab Alberico, has a wonderful breakdown of it, where he says, he takes a guitar, and Fab is a luthier, he builds guitars, and he says, this tree actually comes from hydrocarbons, and hydrocarbons, as a tree, depend upon carbon dioxide coming out of my lungs, and the number of particles in a single exhalation from my lungs numbers in the trillions. So every one of those carbon atoms can be traced and found in stars. The closest star has the very same carbon signature as what I exhale, and what goes into the tree depends on that. So the carbon atoms in the tree, the carbon atoms in the star, and the carbon atoms that I exhale are simply one substance. So to say we are stardust, to say that I am embodied in this guitar is scientifically absolutely accurate. So what's the difference between a Buddha then and me going through all these living beings? And the answer is consciousness turns to wisdom. There is a difference between living beings and Buddhas, which is the vision of the self is gone. Living beings stop with their skin. This is me, right? I'm not you, you're outside me. Well, when you become a Buddha, that vision is different. And it comes from the work you do in the Dharma, teaching those beings about their ultimate identity. All those living beings we cross over, they're with us right now. They're all future Buddhas. So, when you become a Buddha, you say, 我即诸众生皆共成佛道. I and all living beings together become Buddhas. We become Buddhas together. So what's that experience? You're going to have to cultivate hard and experience it yourself before you'll really know. We can use analogies to talk about it, but some people hear this kind of talk and they go, nonsense, airy-fairy, fantasies. Other people hear that notion of only one Buddha and they say, but I want to become a Buddha. So I'm going to fa putishin, I'm going to make the Bodhi resolve and not stop until I become a Buddha. And and some people resonate with that, right? I do. When Master Hua was talking about it, he would say, you've forgotten that we all made vows with Vairochana Buddha in the past to become Buddhas here in America. You all made vows to come here to keep the Dharma alive. Some of you made vows to be monks and nuns. Other of you made vows to be librarians. And others of you made vows to be Dharma protectors. Here we are in the middle of a dream doing the work of the Buddha, Master Hua would say. So, and then he would say, everyone who comes to the city of 10,000 Buddhas, I give you a prediction, you will become a Buddha, he would say. And he would make it this strong statements, and you weren't in any doubt when he said it. I can't make those statements because I don't have his fa li, his Dharma strength. But when Shifu would say something like that, you would really get it. He'd say, if you take refuge with me, you will become a Buddha before I do. So he held that door open wide. And this is the sutra that clearly talks about limitless, countless Buddhas. How hard is that to accept? The Lotus Sutra talks about it too. When the Buddha spoke the Lotus Sutra, 5,000 of his closest disciples stood up and walked out. They said, no way. You put us through all this hard work holding precepts and you say we're all going to become Buddhas? Why didn't you tell us that at the start? And they walked out. So, these are bhikshus who found your question unbearable, right? That's just, they couldn't believe that they had the future to become Buddhas, and that everybody did too. You mean these beggars outside the Buddha hall, spare change, they're going to become Buddhas too? They couldn't accept that. So it's not easy to hear that and make sense of it. But those who do, oh my goodness, it's like breathing another kind of oxygen. It just gets in your cells and there's hope. No matter what the newspaper tells us about what people are doing to people, there's still that hope for waking up. Gets me out of bed in the morning, anyway. And read a little less news. That helps. Just the more you read the headlines, the harder it is to believe that everybody has the Buddha nature. Did you all see the Weather Channel's mock-up of what a 9-foot storm surge is like? Did you see that clip? Oh my. It was viral 2 days ago. The Weather Channel, you know, this good app and website. They had one of their reporters, because the Hurricane Florence, now currently submerging North Carolina, said could have a 3-foot, 6-foot, 9-foot storm surge, which is where the rain falls so hard, and then the ocean flows in because it's water. And they showed a 3-foot storm surge, and they had a green screen, and the weather person was there, and the water was up to her knees, and then a 6-foot storm surge was suddenly over their head, and they had a house and a car and a light pole and a tree, and it showed what a 6-foot storm surge does to your neighborhood. And then they had a 9-foot, which is being predicted. It's already been 23 inches so far in North Carolina. And there was a Twitter comment that I saw from folks who were there, and they said, yeah, Smithfield Ham, they've got 20,000 pigs in cages on the ground. Those pigs are all going to drown, and they have lakes of pig excrement open to the pit. The water is going to fill in and cover them up and put it all in solution. So all those lakes of pig excrement is going to cover the landscape and then settle and dry. And they say, what are you going to do with all those dead pigs? Wouldn't it be something if they could just open the cages? Thinking ahead of a 9-foot, because there's the Smithfield and others, there's 3 or 4 pork producers that have millions of pigs in America, all, you know, heading towards Easter dinner and Christmas dinner. And those poor critters are going to meet 9-foot storm surge. And Omitofo. So we have a lot to transfer merit to, certainly. Golly, I was going to, ii desu ka? That was my best shot at that, yeah. Daijoubu. So I was going to tell a story about working off this idea of when Buddhas are happy, they make the earthquake. Just be a little less happy, okay? And I'm going to have to keep it, because we're still in the middle of this scene. I'll keep it this is from my book of stories from the pilgrimage. And it happened in Los Angeles. An amazing, amazing, amazing story. All right, those of you who have a songbook, could you help me out? Sally Maye, my good buddy at United Religions Initiative, URI, turn to page 84, asked me if I would record the song that I wrote for United Religions. There should be enough songbooks to go around, page 84. I think I'll ask Maud Evans to come back. So this is a song that I wrote for United Religions, and the chorus goes, "You are I, we are one, reunited, we become." That's your part. Should you care to sing, try it. You are I. You can see the acronym or you can see the words. We are one. Reunited. We become. Okay, here we go. If the religions of the world could sit for just 1 hour in harmony. What a peaceful, happy world that hour of harmony would bring. The leaders of all faiths agreed to share their hearts in honesty. What a model for the world, their friendship and integrity. You are I, we are one, reunited, we become. When the children of the world agree to teach their elders harmony, what a joyful laughter in that lesson to humanity. When the people of the world agree to be the change they wish to see, what a peaceful, happy place this world of suffering could be. You are I, we are one, reunited, we become. And when the nations of the world agree to bury guns beneath the tree, what a blessed celebration the end of death by guns would bring. When the URI guides society to religious hospitality, happiness abides within a commonwealth of harmony. You are I. Last time, here we go. We are one. Reunited, we become. Yes, sounds good. Thank you for that. All right, on the last page of your songbook is the dedication of merit, and before we get there, we need to do some announcing. Do you have your microphone there, Dharma Master?
Okay. So we have all the regular activities at the Berkeley Monastery. Monday night we have class. Tuesdays, I don't think this Tuesday we have one, but Wednesday we have Stephen Tainer. Thursday,
little louder, please. Can't hear.
Thursday, Spirit Rock, or East Bay Insight Meditation, and Friday night we have the Sixth Patriarch lecture by Professor Verhoeven. Actually, Monday we have a special lecture that we wanted to make sure people knew about. Dharma Master Heng Sure is actually lecturing the Shrangama mantra, and that's available online. So if you want to find details on that, you can go to drbux.org. So you can go check out the online classes that are available there. In addition, next week we will actually begin our storytelling class with Brian Conroy. He will be teaching from 3:30 to 5 p.m. The topic is Connecting to Our Roots. It's a series of 4 classes where he's going to take us through a process of learning how to tell stories, first by listening, and then finding a good story, developing it, adding kind of storytelling skills to it. So that'll begin this upcoming Saturday at 3:30 p.m., 3:30 to 5.
That storytelling class is really special. If anybody ever had a thought that maybe storytelling was in your future as something to learn, this is a chance.
Yeah.
4 classes, Brian Conroy, super.
And I think actually one announcement is that we will not be having the Amitabha recitation session tomorrow. Just in terms of strength of the monastery, we're going to take a break tomorrow for the recitation, but we'll still have all our Saturday programs as usual.
So tomorrow is once a month event. We have the Theravada nuns from Aloka Vihara. So Aryananda Bodhi will come here and offer her presence and reflection. So 5 p.m. it will be tea and Dhamma in the dining hall. So people can come ask questions and sit together with the Aryananda Bodhi. And 7:30 will be the meditation and Dhamma talk.
Maybe
The
one
library?
more, and one more event. This is the centennial of Master Hua, and so at the San Francisco Public Library, we have a special exhibit displaying many historical photos of his life and his accomplishments, as well as some of his artifacts and kind of things he's used. And so it's a really, you could say, special opportunity to see these display, as well as maybe share it with friends, because it's in a public place. It's in the 3rd floor of the San Francisco Library in the Chinese section. And on October 6th, we're going to have you could say, a kind of commemoration event where we're inviting many honored guests from around the world, from China, from Taiwan, officials, and so on and so forth, to come and learn about and kind of say celebrate this teacher who inspired many of us to walk this path of awakening. And so that will begin at 1 p.m. at the San Francisco Library. This is the 100 Larkin Street, I believe, in San Francisco. So it's 1 to 5 p.m. If you want details, please talk to one of the monks. We can give you more details, but it should be a very important event, and very, what do you call it? You don't want to miss it. Yeah.
That's what they say in English. Yeah. Don't miss it if you can. Okay, by golly, that's a lot of announcements. So the meditation, the recitation that we had going tomorrow on the calendar is going to be postponed, not to happen. The storytelling with Brian Conroy is very special. Of course, the library exhibit at San Francisco Public Library is going to be quite a do. We're having we're having monks from 3 monasteries in China, significant monasteries. Zhenru Monastery on Cloud-Dwelling Mountain, Yunjushan. That's where Master Empty Cloud spent his last years. The last 5 of his 120 years was there. Master Hua was there as well. The abbot of Zhenru Si, Master Chunwan, is coming. The abbot of Longhua Si in Shanghai, one of the oldest monasteries in China, been there since the 4th century, is coming. And that's Master Zhao Cheng. And also Master Guangquan from Lingyan Si in Hangzhou, where I was last March, is coming. It's one of the China's most magnificent places. And so these are leaders of Buddhism in China are coming to honor Master Shenhua. So we're really delighted. Also Master Mingguang from Dashong Jingshe in Taipei. Our Dharma buddy, Master Mingguang, will be coming as well.
Jing Wei Shi just reminded there's one more event, which we're having a talk by Tom Brocher, talking about earthquake safety. He's actually a really respected seismologist from UC Berkeley with lots of experience. And we have, people know we are on the Hayward Fault, and this fault actually is supposed to be, what you call it, talking about earthquakes today. Every 150, this is, rather than the earth being very happy and shaking us a little bit to make people happy, sometimes it shakes in a way that makes people unhappy. And so we want to be prepared. And so with the monasteries trying to get prepared, and we invited Tom Brocher to come speak to share his expertise. So if you have time, that's Sunday, September 30th, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Sunday, September 30th.
So that's a Sunday after lunch, early afternoon.
Right here.
Yeah, here in the Buddha Hall. Tom is one of our regular listeners. He was at Buddha Root Farm. People remember Tom? He's going to be giving. He's a experienced, talented public speaker on earthquake safety. So you don't have to be from the neighborhood. This is knowledge that's useful for anybody going through similar earthquakes. So dedication time. Think of all the or worse than the hurricane currently afflicting our east coast is the hurricane that beat through the Philippines. Incredible damage. Huge. I forgot the name of that hurricane. Anybody? Typhoon? Mangkut, like the Thai king. Yeah, it's a typhoon there, hurricane here, and they say back to Hurricane Florence, the winds have pretty much slowed down, but the rain has just begun, and we'll be hearing about that for some time because the actual storm is moving at 2 miles per hour, which is really slow. It's taking its time to dump its water, and people, they say that we're not, even though they were prepared in advance, they're not prepared for what really happens when a storm surge 6 feet high comes into your neighborhood. You know, that's the second floor of your house is where you will go if you can get away. So we might share our blessings with folks who are experiencing all that trauma and loss. Okay, Jerry, how are we doing with our attendance figures? 60 on YouTube? Okay. 47 on YY? Okay, that's from Cliff. How many folks in the Gold Coast were listening in? Great. Yep. Nice. Great. I knew that question came from Ben. That was a Ben kind of question. So yeah. No, not? No. Oh, from Wesley Xu from Shanghai. Oh my goodness. Wesley's been learning our vocabulary. So we need to sit down and talk that out face to face, Wes. So. Okay, dedication of merit. Here we go. Every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds away to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward, may all who sorrow leave their grief and may this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. Okay, we'll bow to the Buddhas. Stand up slowly, get the kinks out of your knees. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Namo Da Fang Guang Fu Hua Yin Ji Hua Yin